we're going to discuss, a few short concepts. So one of them is the first one, which we need to understand is, profit is actually described in two ways. We call it markup and we call it margin. So when I say that, the profit was 20%, you should immediately think like that, is it 20% markup or is it 20% margin? Because markup is calculated as a percentage on cost price and margin is actually a percentage on sales price. This is, and that makes quite a lot of difference. Now that's a very basic concept, but I want to make sure that we clearly understand it because in each of your questions, this concept is going to be used. So whenever you are doing a question from consolidation or, wherever your profits are involved, markups and margins, we need to understand. Let's suppose we start with a simple example. Okay. Let's suppose I tell you that there is a product which has a sales price of 500. And I say that the profit inside is, 20% margin, or let's call it 20% markup. So what was the cost price? This is the question. So how do we calculate the cost in this situation? When I say that selling price is 500, profit is 20% markup. So what is the cost price? Now you can do it with formulas, but I will start with very basic. I will teach you 2 or 3 methods, whichever is convenient for you, whichever makes more sense to you, you will use that. I prefer like this, that selling price is equal to cost price plus profit. So this is a very generic equation. Selling price is equal to this. So selling price I know is 500. Cost price I don't know. So I assume it as X. And how much is profit? Profit is 20%, which means 0.20. But because it is markup, markup means percentage on the cost price. You see that markup? Markup means percentage on the cost price, on the cost. Now, cost you do not know. Cost you already have assumed as X, so you call it 0.20 of X. So it means that 500 is equal to 1.20X, and then you can say that X is equal to 500 divided by 1.2. So if I take it with calculator, 500 divided by 1.2, so it makes me 416. So it means that my cost is 416. Cost was 416. You can do it otherwise as well. Now you have 416, and you add 20% on top of that, you will get the same number 500. Now, if I want to do the same scenario, where I say that your, let's suppose, selling price was 500, and I say that profit is 20%, but this time I'm saying 20% margin. I'm not saying markup, I call it margin now. So then how much was cost price? So you have to find out. Again, the same equation, selling price is equal to cost price plus profit. And selling price was 500 and cost is, we don't know, we keep it X, and profit is 0.20. Now this time we are saying margin. Margin means a percentage on the selling price, which means 0.20, not from X, like here we took X, here I would say selling 0.20 of 500, because margin means 20% on the sales price. So it means that 500 is equal to X plus, 100, and X is equal to 400. So cost comes out to be 400. So data is same. One time you got 416, one time you got 400, because 20% markup, 20% margin are two different scenarios. Now let's create another scenario. I say that cost price is 1000 and you have 25% markup on that. And then how much was selling price? So before I calculate, I was given selling price. This time we are calculating selling price. We say selling price is equal to cost price plus profit. And if we see now that cost is 1000 plus it is markup, so it is 25% of 1000, and you get the number 1250. Simple. But the same question, if we want to do it with margin, I'm taking the same data like cost price 1000, 25% I say margin, and find out how much is the sales price. Okay, we have to calculate the selling price. Again, I'm going to use the same. Equation, that selling price is equal to cost price plus profit. Selling price I don't know, I keep it like SP. Cost price I know it is 1000, or let me call it not SP, let me call it, let's suppose I call it X. Okay, I call it X. X is equal to 1000 plus profit is 25%. And because I'm saying that this time it is margin, so it means that 25% of the selling price is already X. So what I get, X is equal to 1000 plus 0.25 of X. Okay, and that means that 1000 is equal to, or let's call it like this, 0.75 of X is equal to 1000, and X will be equal to 1000 divided by 0.75. This is a very mathematical way of doing it. Like I'm doing it like a mathematician. Okay, so I'm not doing it like an accountant. Accountant can do it much faster. So it means that your selling price would be 1333. Now again, the two answers are different. Here you got selling price as 1250. Here you are getting selling price as 1333, depending on markup and margin. This is, we call them equation method, very typical of like mathematics. Okay, now if you have to do it as an accountant and you want to do it much faster, so then what you should do? Of course, we are accountants and we want to do it much faster. Let's suppose that I tell you that there is a product which has a selling price of 3000, and I tell you that it has markup 25%, or let's call it 15%, or it has margin 15%. And what we usually are required in exam, it's very common that they tell us that this is the selling price, and sometimes we need to calculate how much was cost, sometimes we need to calculate how much was profit inside. So if I ask you that how much is profit inside, so selling price is 3000, so how much is profit inside? If it is margin, that's very simple, because we know that margin is a percentage on the selling price. You would simply do 3000 multiplied by 15%, and that makes you, I think, 450. So 450 is the profit inside, and of course if you subtract 450 from 3000, the cost will come out to be 2550. So this is your cost. Just simply multiply. In case of margin, margin is always, if you have been given selling price, margin is easy to calculate. If I say markup, now this is 3000 and you have 15% markup. Markup of what? Markup of cost. How much is cost? You do not know, but I know that inside of this 3000, 15% has been put on the cost. So what you need to do, very simply, 3000 multiplied by 15 divided by 115. If I say that it is 20% markup, you would say 3000 multiplied by 20 divided by 120. So if I calculate now this number, 3000 into 15 divided by 115, so it gives me a markup of 391. The profit inside is 391, and naturally speaking, whatever is remaining 3,000 minus 391, that would be the cost price. We need to calculate this cost a lot, this profit part a lot. When you are doing consolidation or any other calculations, you need this profit calculation, because they will tell you that company A sold goods for 9 million to company B at a markup of 20%. So how much was profit inside? So profit inside, in case of markup, use this relationship. Instead of doing this long calculation, actually these calculations are same. Mathematically, ultimately it will end up like this. It's not something unique I'm doing. It is the same thing, but it's just a quick way of doing it. Margin, just simply multiply it. Markup, remember this relationship. If I tell you that there was a 30% markup, so you should say 30,000 multiplied by 30 divided by 130, and that will tell you exactly how much was profit inside. Are we clear here?